This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is it for all the marbles, for the whole Magilla, for the whole enchilada, for the whole bowl of nachos. This is it, the official championship preview in what has been the tournament of all tournaments, a colossal blow of some of the best teams in the history of ETBU for the past 5 seasons. In this tournament, we were looking for the 1927 Yankees, the 85 Bears, the Chicago Bulls of the 90s. Oh man, we were looking for some of the best teams, and now we are down to 2 teams left. I'm Kenneth the K-Rock Cline, and as always, I'm privileged to be joined by the man from NOLA, the Who Dat guy, living in New Orleans, the one, the only, Mark T. Robinson, a.k.a. Mr. Guarantee. And Mark, I got to say, you got your calls right yesterday.
I told you, Kenny. But, man, I tell you what a matchup between hockey and football. I have the kind of the stats up here to how the voting turned out, and football just barely edged out hockey, getting 50.4, I think, percent of the vote or something like that, and hockey getting a little bit over 49%. But, man, and you even said before we came on today that with that matchup, it was tied at 50% for a little bit up until literally the final minute. Didn't we call it? Didn't we say it was going to come down to something like that, the final play of the game? And, man, It was amazing. We've been having a lot of fun with this thing.
Certainly, and I just can't imagine. I mean, I'm thinking about how that last play would have unfolded if those 2 teams would have faced off against each other. And I kept thinking, okay, maybe somebody from ETBU hockey fired a shot, hit the crossbar, the puck goes all the way to the other side, it turns into a football, and then Kendall Roberson picks it up, runs it back. He has one player to get up, and instead of just, getting by around him, trying to weave his way around him, he barrels over the guy like Earl Campbell or Bo Jackson and went in for the winning touchdown at the last second. So I tell you what, man. I mean, I was worried that we were going to have like another 10-hour session or so to determine.
I know.
Obviously, we're having the championship tomorrow at 5 p.m., and we certainly don't want to have that ruined, to say the least. But fortunately, a last-minute miracle for football to pull it out there. And I got to say, and the bigger surprise, obviously, we thought there was a chance that they could win, but the bigger surprise has to be men's soccer, to say the least. I mean,
absolutely.
They have been building up some momentum here, and obviously their campaigning just continued to get very impressively. They're not just beating teams in the polls, they're destroying them in the polls.
Yeah, this is really a big-time shot to me. I'm just kind of looking at, all the support that the men's soccer team getting, and hey, they might be, more social media savvy, more political savvy than we thought, because they have a lot of fans and ETBU faithful rallying to their cause. And I think that is really what's carried them all the way through this tournament to the championship game. And it's going to go down to this. And with 2 teams left, I don't know. Anything can happen, because somehow ETBU men's soccer is just pulling off arguably one of the greatest upsets in bracketology history. I mean, I know I'm going a little dramatic there, but when you really think about the teams that were in this tournament, Kenny, did you really think at the beginning of this tournament that you would have said, okay, that 2018 men's soccer team is going to be going up against that 2015 football team? I mean, I don't think any of us would have said that at the start of this thing.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think when you look at ETBU as a whole, you have to think that arguably the top 2 sports in terms of, maybe popularity or success, but for starters, you would have to think ETBU football is the big daddy of all the sports and everything. But then you think about ETBU softball, they've had the most success out of any teams as well. But then you look at all the other sports that have been going on. Obviously, women's basketball has had a great stretch for the past couple of seasons. They've turned things around. ETBU's hockey team really stood toe-to-toe, and maybe they kind of let off the gas pedal a little bit, because at one point they had a 10% lead, and then all of a sudden I think they might have just let off the gas pedal a little bit too long. That allowed football to come back to put together a game-winning possession drive. But I think it's really kind of surprising. So in some ways, I'm not surprised that football's in, but men's soccer has definitely made a lot of heads roll over and like that. They're making me doing something that I never thought I would say.
Yeah. I think.
You can hear that. They're making me a believer out of them.
But I think, Kenny, that if somehow they could figure out a way to use this, even though this is kind of all hypothetical situations, if they can use this to kind of, as motivation for the 2020 season, I think that would be very interesting. They can have their hashtag right now. I can see it. If they pull this whole thing out, hashtag ETBU's greatest team on the back of a T-shirt or something like that, on the front of a T-shirt, something. I don't know. Somehow, I think I would try to use this as motivation. Like, you said you were ETBU's greatest team. Let's see if you can prove it here with a couple of championships over the next couple of years. That should be the motivating factor for their 2020 campaign. But that's just me. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, they didn't win a championship that season, but obviously if they get something out of this, then that could definitely be a big championship for them as well. But you're right, of course. This is obviously a big factor if ETBU soccer does, in fact, pull off the upset here. They haven't won a championship yet. And obviously with the way the program, they went a step backwards this past season, but hopefully something like this could really propel them to the top. I mean, Chad Cox seems to be having a program in the right direction, to say the least, but we'll know for sure. So I guess the only way to break down the matchup is to take a look at the seasons for both teams in particular. So just in contrast. So I think what we need to do is kind of break down some of the big games, big moments during that season. And hopefully, we can probably get an understanding of what it is that both teams are going up against, because obviously they've obviously heard about the other team's success, but they kind of don't have an understanding of what's going on. So I guess we'll start with ETBU men's soccer, to say the least. Men's soccer team, obviously, during Chris Crawford's what would eventually be his final year as a head coach there, he obviously was having them, in a little bit of a rough spot. At one point, they were sort of out of the tournament picture, but then it took a couple of big wins against Belhaven and Louisiana College, a couple of shutout wins as well. Then what really kind of put them back into the tournament picture was their upset win over UT Dallas, 2-1. It was a come-from-behind game. I think they scored like 2 goals in the final 10 minutes. And then the overtime winner, of course, against Howard Payne, that guaranteed them the right to host a conference tournament. Plus, you follow that up with the win over Ozarks, and then you got yourself to the conference semifinals. So, I mean, it was really the way that ETBU played. They really just peaked at the right time, to say the least. They just kind of built some momentum, and it seemed like the momentum was building their confidence, and it got to the point where at one point during the game against UT Dallas in the semifinals, I actually thought that they were going to win that game, and they really should have won that game, but it just wasn't meant to be, to say the least. But I'll tell you what, if they had won that game, they're playing for the conference championship, and who knows? Something good might have come out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of look at the matchup with these two teams in particular from the standpoint of, with this men's soccer team, a lot of things have happened with this team that you just don't expect. Like, for example, we've talked about it numerous times. The win over number 25 ranked UT Dallas, didn't expect that to happen. Didn't expect to be battling them all the way down to a double overtime, losing to a final goal in the final minutes of overtime there, in the second overtime there in the ASC tournament. But then what you didn't expect throughout that game with UT Dallas, the goal scorers were obviously, you expect Silas Sagano, but the other goal scorer was Travis Atkinson. So who was known as who was the best, arguably one of the best defenders on his ETBU squad for his years being here. So you kind of look at what this soccer team is able to do is they are able to, like we said, rise to the occasion. It seems like the bigger the matchup, the more the players show up and are ready to play. And don't forget, this past year, they beat the defending champions to start ASC play in UMHB. I believe that was a 2-1 game out on the road, if I'm not mistaken, but in a hostile environment against the defending champions from this past year. So I'm thinking, Kenny, at this point, just about everything is up for grabs. You can't count this team out anymore. And I'm just kind of looking at this matchup right now, and I think that this 2018 team has as good of a chance of winning this whole thing as would say if softball were to advance or any of the other teams. So yeah, they're here, and they're here for a reason. So they're trying to prove us wrong right now. But looking over at the other side to ETBU football, that 2015 team, obviously, you know, that was a heck of a game. That was the Mud Bowl game. They won it 27-21. And actually, the one thing that I'm surprised about looking at this team is the fact that in that game against Hart-Simmons, I'm surprised they were able to score 27 points with the way, you know, they had to kind of go through the dirt and the muck and the mud and all that stuff and just play grind out football. But they were able to do it. So can't count out this team either, because they've got some sluggers on that team. And, you know, you got Roberson, you have all the other guys as well. Drawing a little bit of a blank, but you have all the other guys that, you know, have really helped out the team as far as, you know, winning and sharing in that championship. But again, you can't count anybody out at this point, and it's kind of up for grabs. You had Warburton on that team. You had Tyler Bates as well. So, I mean, I think this is going to be another good one. It's going to go down to the wire again. I'm calling it right now. It's going down to the wire because these are two teams that are coming in. One of the things that they do have in common is the fact that they have rallied a ton of social media support. We know ETBU football has got a big following. Men's soccer apparently has a ton of followers that we haven't even known about. Some support. So this is going to be a battle of the Titans here, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, certainly. I think men's soccer, obviously, they definitely have proven that they can compete against everybody. But, I mean, you look at men's soccer team, their top players for that particular season, obviously Daniel Rudder, Silas Sangano, Max Ponte-Corvo as well. But then you look at ETBU, I feel like between the two teams, there's a more offensive spark plug, I guess, if you will, offensive firepower on the ETBU football side, because you not only had Josh Warburton, that's the quarterback, but you had Kenneth Roberson bruising his way through people as well. And then, of course, the wide receiving core of Tyler Bates and everything. The defensive players for the Tigers, certainly one of the strongest in all the conference, to say the least. But looking at football, some of football's other key wins that I've noticed, I think that certainly helps them as well. Against Texas College, Tyler Bates had 4 touchdowns for 193 yards on 5 receptions. So kind of like Randy Moss's Thanksgiving Day game against the Cowboys in '98.
Yeah.
Rookie, to say the least. Sorry to Cowboy fans. But then you had a game against Louisiana College where ETBU ended their losing streak to the Wildcats and were able to retain the claw, which is still in our possession to this day, to say the least. That was a huge win, 44-34. Then you have the infamous Roberson 420-yard plus game where it happened to be in a monsoon of all things, to say the least. I say monsoon, but and then the Hardin-Sims game as well. So really, both teams, like you said, they've managed to have political support, but they've also had some very impactful games that have really helped benefit them to where they managed to make a big statement towards the rest of the conference as well. It's just kind of a shame that in some ways it's kind of been a little tainted, to say the least, because ETBU had to share their conference title with Hardin-Simmons and Mary Hardin-Baylor in football, whereas the men's soccer team unfortunately came up short of the conference championship game. But suffice to say, I mean, you're looking at this match from a political social media standpoint. I mean, I thought the football-hockey matchup was going to be intense. Something tells me that this one's going to be even more intense. Heck, it might even not be decided until, I don't know, Christmas, maybe? I mean, we got 24 hours to vote.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, this is definitely going to be something to talk about when all the sports and when school and everything picks back up for these guys. Some big-time bragging rights, and we love it. We work in sports, so we love having these conversations all the time. But if I got to make my prediction, Kenny.
Okay, yeah, I was actually gonna segue into that as well. So folks, obviously, like before we get into our prediction and all that, let's talk about the one team that you think you were probably the most surprised that they didn't get in? What's the one team that you thought from this tournament that you thought you would have them going all the way to this point and that they haven't met up?
ETBU softball. I got to be honest. I am very, very surprised that they weren't able to advance. And especially, I was looking kind of at the Twitter feed last night, and there were a lot of fans and a lot of former players saying, look, you know, we want to advance to the championship. Go out and vote. They were rallying some support. And that's what I like I said, really love that about this whole thing is everybody was getting involved, and it just made it that much more fun. But I'm surprised they're not here because I thought they were going to overcome kind of the soccer team in spite of the support that they've been rallying and kind of the underdog mentality. But hey, they weren't able to pull it out, and that's what makes this so much fun. And then as I kind of look back at all the other teams here, another team that I'm kind of shocked that isn't here, obviously, you know, I wanted to see women's basketball once again making it to the final, the championship round. But then again, they'd have to go up against football, I think, in order to get there if they were to beat out hockey. And that would have kind of been a tough mountain to overcome. But again, for the most part, I mean, the matchups have been great. I love the upsets. This is what March Madness, so to speak, is supposed to feel like. But like I said, I'm still shocked that 2016 softball team did not advance, Kenny. And that's just tough.
Yes, definitely. And I think that, you know, I agree with you on those two teams. I think softball probably should have been at this point, and I think maybe women's basketball should have at least been to the Final Four as well. But I think one team that I thought really had a chance of making it this far would be the 2017 baseball team as well. The only problem, though, was that they kind of were surrounded in the same region. Like, they had to get by men's basketball 2014-15, which won the conference championship, but then they ran into the 2016 softball team. And I really thought that there was going to be a possibility that it was going to be baseball going up against maybe men's soccer, to say the least. But suffice to say, you know, I guess they were just put in the wrong region. Maybe if they were in a different part of the bracket, they might have actually had a chance to win. So, all right. Well, you've heard our pregame comparison talk, to say the least, and I guess there's just only one thing left to do, and that's just to make our predictions. So, Mark T. Robinson, the ball's in your court, to say the least. Which one are you going to go with, football or football?
Drum roll. I'm going to go with men's soccer. I'm going to go out on the underdog train, and I think men's soccer is gonna take this whole thing. They're playing motivated right now. They've got the support. They've kind of got that underdog mentality. They've got that Rocky mentality. They're going the distance, and they're not just going to go the distance to say we made it to the championship. I think they're going to make a statement and surprise some people. They're probably going to get narrowly over 50% of the vote, but we'll see how it pans out. Again, this is going to be a tough battle. So I'm looking forward to seeing a good turnout. Yeah,
definitely. This one's kind of a little bit of a crazy. I mean, I went on my walk last night. I was trying to think about which way it's going to go with all the matchups, and then seeing the results. I've been sort of debating back and forth. I've been flipping coins. I've been playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo with myself. I've been picking up pedals. I've been trying to go back and forth. I'm trying to figure something, but I haven't really been able to get some sort of message, to say the least. And then it kind of hit me. You know, we live in Texas, to say the least. And obviously, you know, in Texas, football is big, to say the least. And then, of course, you got your traditional Wild West rodeo cowboy kind of stuff. And I was just thinking, you know, the cowboy that has the white hat on is usually the good guy, right? Whereas the cowboy with the black hat is usually
you're right.
So, but what if the cowboy that's wearing the black hat isn't a bad guy, that they just happen to be the underdog in? I mean, have you ever maybe thought about that?
Yeah, I have multiple times, and I think it'd be an interesting take. But like I said, I think it still makes it that much more interesting, especially when you kind of put that analogy to it out there. Never really thought about it like that. So,
well, I just thought I pointed it out because I'm going to be going with the underdog as well. So.
Nice.
Wow, I'm going with men's soccer. Also, they're going to go in there and they're going to win this whole thing, and they will be the greatest team in ETBU history. So, cannot wait for that.
I can't wait to talk to the guys after this. See what they wwere thinking during this whole thing, man. The bragging rights, whether they're going to use this as motivation. I know some of the guys have been really getting some big time support from all across the Twitter sphere. Kenny's got his black hat on. I love it. We're going underdog route. Men's soccer, here we come. Greatest team in ETBU history over the past 5 years.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We got a good feeling about this one. All right, folks, here's the deal. The championship will not start until tomorrow at 5 p.m. Then you will be able to vote. So you will have 24 hours starting at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and then you guys will make your decision as to who you think is better, the football team or the men's soccer team. Definitely going to be an exciting matchup, to say the least. I cannot wait to see who we crown. We're probably going to be interviewing both coaches or both players from those two teams, to say the least. So it should be a fun time. But, well, pretty much just going to wrap things up here. Mark, any final thoughts for you?
Yeah, just everyone stay safe out there. Our thoughts and prayers dealing with this whole pandemic. And go out there and vote. I'm telling you, it's been fun being involved in this tournament. And I want to see an underdog being crowned the greatest team in ETBU history over the past 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. Stay safe, obviously. Thoughts and prayers are with y'all. Hopefully everything goes well. And just make sure you continue to vote and support ETBU athletics, because we got a lot in store for you for the next couple of days or so. Well, that's going to wrap things up here for our preview. Remember, 5 o'clock tomorrow, you start voting. For Mark T. Robinson in New Orleans, I'm Kenneth the K-Rock Cline in Houston, Texas, saying goodbye so long. And we will see you guys next time on the ETBU Sportsnet.